For example, because the laws of the universe are always working for you to show you this. There's not a shred of evidence anywhere in the universe to the contrary of what we're speaking here. So as you hear it and you begin watching for it, it will show itself to you over and over again till you'll feel your own true power. So let's say, have you ever had an experience, it's more prevalent with men than women, but it happens, where you are having a fist fight with someone? You've actually come to blows. But there was a point before you, or before someone, we'll say you, threw that first punch. There was a point where you could have held that punch back and it would have been better, because your nose wouldn't have been broken and you wouldn't now be in jail. In other words, there was a point where if you had used a little willpower, a little personal motivation, you could have pulled the punch back, and even though you were so mad you were spitting bullets, it would have been better, because it got worse once the action happened from outside the vortex. You following? Mm-hmm. Have you ever been in the midst of an argument with someone where the more you spewed, the worse it got? It just got bigger and badder and bigger and badder and bigger and badder till it came to blows. Wasn't there a point where if you could have just held back, it would have been better? Aren't there things you have said that you just wish you hadn't said? But once you've crossed that sensitive line, it's crossed. In other words, you can't really take that perspective back. So in the same way that you could pull back your fists, or you could pull back those venomous words, you can also pull back those thoughts, because the thoughts lead to the words and the words lead to the behavior. In other words, it's all part of the expansion process, because as we've been saying to you for years, if you've got negative emotion and you don't know what it means and you don't do something about diluting it and replacing it with better feelings, don't worry, it will get bigger. Because law of attraction insists that it will. And if you still don't do something about it, it will get bigger. And if you still don't do something about it, it will get bigger. Law of attraction insists that it will. And the thing that's so interesting, and this is what we so want you to hear, leading edge creators out here on the leading edge, hearing things for the first time today ever, as that whirlwind, as that vortex of what you don't want gets bigger, as that problem gets bigger, so does the solution. And it is the relationship between the problem getting bigger and the solution that gets bigger that equals the strain within you. In other words, we so want you to hear that, and you said something similar to that to us when you sat down. If the problem didn't get this big, then the solution wouldn't be this big. So the question really is, how big a price am I willing to pay for my solutions? And we want to say to you, we think you're done. In other words, you've got enough in this vortex to keep you busy for 20 or 30 lifetimes. We really don't think that there is any virtue in suffering into this expansion. In other words, that you will always expand, but it's really time to stop justifying where you stand by pointing out everything that's wrong. It's really time to start trying to bliss out a little. It's really time to start giving others and yourself the benefit of the doubt. It's really time to start praising more than criticizing and looking for solutions rather than problems. It's really time to start laughing instead of crying, and start complimenting instead of defending. It's really time to start looking for things that feel a little better and letting go of those things that don't feel so good. But what it's really time for is to give up the motivating action part and to begin allowing the universal forces to do the work for you. When you get in your automobile, we know you don't ever feel like it is your responsibility to get under the hood and pull belts and pulleys and pistons. You don't do that. You leave that to the ingenuity of your engine, and you just steer it in the direction of where you want to go. And we want to convince you of the power of this vortex and the cooperative components that are already lined up on your behalf. And we want to make it so clear that you are the only uncooperative component. And the reason you are is because you're so busy noticing what is. You're so busy trying to ferret out the problem. You're so busy trying to justify your existence. It's time for you to just chill and accept the grandness and the goodness and the wholeness and the worthiness of that which you are, and stop defending anything to anyone, especially to yourself. If somebody says to you, as parents often said to you when you were little, why did you do that? Your answer must be, because I wanted to. I thought I wanted to. We want you to get into this place where you are no longer trying to please the peanut gallery, the out of control, fickle peanut gallery who really doesn't know what it wants from you anyway. Because it just wants to feel better and thinks that your behavior modification might be part of the key, but it isn't. You cannot stand on your head in enough different ways to really affect anyone in a positive way very much. The best you can do for anyone is to get into your vortex and be who you really are and then radiate the wholeness of your being back to them, you see. So, we want to talk about every relationship you have, and we want to say to you that every relationship that you're currently living falls far, 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 far short of the one that you've got in your vortex. Every single time. Every relationship that you're living cannot even come close to measuring up to the one you've got into your vortex. Stop asking it to. Stop asking it to. Stop needing those relationships to be different than they are so that you can feel better. That's not the way this universe is established. That was the bouncing off place for this. This is where you want to put your attention. You see what we're getting at? So it's really interesting. You have this dream of a perfect relationship or a perfect breakfast or a perfect hotel or a perfect drive you have this dream, you have this anticipation that from a distance felt good to dream it, but now you're living the reality of it and it's not living up. So you feel deprived, you feel almost offended, you feel almost assaulted. You say to each other, you don't bring me flowers anymore. You say, you promised to obey me. You promised to hold me dear. And we say, we really, if you can just hear this, if you can just hear that no relationship that is ever manifested will ever measure up to the one you've got in your vortex. And if you will let them off the hook and focus on your vortex, you'll keep yourself joyful. And the relationships will improve too. But we're not giving you this information so that the relationships can catch up and start pleasing you, so that you can then start turning around and observing the relationships that are pleasing you. We so want you to get it that you've always been reaching into who you are, and anything less than that will never feel as good. Now, let's talk about this in really vivid terms. So those of you who have been in love, who now have relationships, you want to say you're in love, but maybe you don't really feel it so much. It's been a long time since you felt that in love feeling. Here's why. In the beginning, that relationship was more of a dream than it was a reality. You were building that relationship long before you ever hooked up with this particular person. It became who you really are. You and that person became this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful relationship. And it's vivid and real, and it holds all that you are. You're kind to one another. You believe in one another. You're respectful of one another. You're looking for the best in each other. You're evoking more and more. You are the catalyst that keeps pulling more good stuff through each other. You are humorous together. You're tuned in, tapped in, turned on. You move well together. You move through life well together. In other words, in the vortex, what a magnificent relationship that you've built, because every awkward moment improved it. Everything that went wrong made it right. Everything that was off made it on. In other words, are you getting the sense of this? You created this. Now, some of you want to call this an illusion. We want to call it the vibrational reality. We want to call it the relationship that you have created. We want to call it the world that you created from your non-physical and physical vantage point. It is a reality that is real, that you've got to be a vibrational match to, or you won't feel good. So then when you look at reality as it is, you can't help but compare. You're not as nice as you're supposed to be. You're not as attentive to me as you're supposed to be. Chivalry's dead over there, is still alive over here. In other words, and so then you're hard on each other, because then you want them to perform in a way that matches up to this. And we're wanting you to understand you're looking for love in all the wrong places. It's in your vortex, and it's not their responsibility. Are you following this? So when you get there, then what happens is you begin enjoying the alignment of your vision, which fills you with the feeling of life. Don't you know from your own experience that when you're on your way to the relationship, you felt so much better than when you actually got there? And it's because when you got there, you started looking at it as it is. And what it is in terms of manifestation is never up to speed with what it has become. It's already past tense. Well, you took that pretty well. Because, well, that's hard. It's a hard thing to hear. What we're saying to you is, in terms of physics, it would be like saying to you, as you're driving down the road, you want to look where you're going, not where you are. And not where you've been. You want to look where you're going. And while that's simplistic and really almost silly, it's the same idea. We want you to look toward what will manifest, but we want you to look toward what is. We want you to feel the realness of who you are. So now, speculate just for a little bit. Think about how, have you ever, let's find some simple ideas. Have you ever got an idea that you'd like to refurbish your house or buy new furniture? And do you remember that, how good it felt? Did you ever look through catalogs and kind of start forming an image of how you'd like it to look? And didn't it feel better than when you got into the throes of trying to gather it all up? Or pay for it? Or find someone who could coordinate it? In other words, isn't it easier to feel good in the envisioning stage? And what we want you to come along, and we can feel you starting to move with us. What we want you, if we could convince you that your life is about the way you feel, then it wouldn't matter to you if you're dreaming the new furniture or if you're placing it. If we've really convinced you that how you feel is where it's at. So movie makers just keep dreaming new movies. Authors just keep dreaming new books. Songwriters just keep writing new songs. The creative people never rest on their laurels. The happy creative people only stay happy and creative because they keep writing the next song. You see what we're getting at? They keep painting the next painting. Do you really think the world needs another painting? No, but painters want to paint. Sculptors want to sculpt. Songwriters want to write songs. Musicians want to make music. In other words, you're getting the hang of it, aren't you? In other words, you want to flow the energy. That's how you mold the clay. You want to flow the energy. You want to think the good feeling thoughts. You want to sing the good feeling songs. You want to think the good feeling thoughts. You want to think the good feeling thoughts. You want to think the good feeling thoughts. You don't want to think bad feeling thoughts. You want to think the good feeling thoughts. Now think about it. As we watch people building empires, as we watch relationships coming together, as we watch movements coming into being, do you know that far and away the majority of the movement happens before there is any physical stuff that even comes into being? In other words, as you dream your empire, as you dream your dream employees, as you dream your dream product, as you dream the world's response to it, as you dream that, it's all pure because there's no reality that's clashing with it. You got to dream it as you wanted to dream it. But when you start facing reality and reality clashes with the dream, that's when you lose your connection and that's when your dream slows down.